Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. So today we're going to be reviewing Penelope Bourbon. Named after the founder's daughter, Penelope is the company's signature four-grain bourbon. The folks over there were kind enough to send me two samples to review on the channel. So here we have their standard four-grain bourbon, and here we have their barrel strength four-grain bourbon. I'm actually really excited to get into these. I've heard a lot about this company, some of the awards that they've won. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. So we're going to go ahead and get started with their standard four-grain bourbon. Now, this one is 80 proof. It's aged 2 to 3 years, and the mash bill on this one is 75% corn, 15% wheat, 7% rye, and 3% malted barley. So let's go ahead and get into the nose on this one. So the first thing I get is a nice lemon peel on here. Very nice citrus notes. It's very refreshing on the nose. A little bit further down there, I get a nice sweet cornbread. Cornbread right out of the oven. I'm not picking up any kind of wheated notes on the nose. Very slight cherry note. Very, very slight. That's a little bit further into the glass. I like that though, that cherry and that fresh baked cornbread on the nose. Again, it's very refreshing too. That little bit of lemon peel on there. Definitely, I mean, there's a little bit of caramel, vanilla in there, but the citrus notes and that cornbread mixed with that cherry are kind of overtaking the standard caramel and vanilla you would get. Really nice nose. Let's go into the palate, guys. Cheers. So, being 80 proof, it's not going to hit you with a lot of heat on the palate. Surprisingly, though, for 80 proof, that first sip came off oily. It really covered the whole palate. No real burn. Front of the palate, though, a very nice, like a rich, really sweet honey. And then following through the back, you get some of those, the standard, the caramel and the vanilla, but that honey note, that really sweet honey note on the front of the palate, really nice. And again, it was very refreshing on the nose. It's very refreshing on the palate as well. Let's go into the second sip. So on that second sip, that honey note is still there. Going into the middle of the palate, you get a little bit of the grains. I think I'm picking up some of that wheat. It's almost like a little bready on the middle of the palate. I kind of like that though. It's not a bad thing. With it being only 2 to 3 years, sometimes you're gonna get that on the palate. You're gonna get some of those young characters on there. But again, that honey on the front of the palate, very, very sweet. It almost cancels out that bready note, the grain note on the middle of the palate. Finish goes through very quickly. The honey actually is almost covering the whole palate at this point. Again, still very pretty oily for an 80 proofer. Let's go ahead and get in the last sip, guys. I mean, it sticks to the glass really well, too. Very, very sweet on the front of the palate. So right there on the finish, I actually get a little bit of a toasted almond. So that sweet honey on the front, some of that the grains and that breadiness on the middle of the palate. Honey kind of goes all the way through. That sweetness just goes all the way through into the finish. It's a short finish. Again, it's still kind of oily on the palate. but then there's that toasted almond note that's right there on the finish. I actually really like. I don't understand where the toasted part of it came from, but it's very tasty. Again, it's a very refreshing standard 4 grain here from Penelope. All right, guys, so we're going to get into the barrel proof version now. This one comes in at 116 proof, is aged 3 to 4 years, and the mash bill on this one is 76% corn, 15% wheat, 6% rye, and 3% malted barley. So let's go ahead and get into the nose. All right, so totally different nose on this one. Definitely some deep, dark, rich caramel. First thing I get. I still pick up a little bit more of a cherry note on this one. Definitely some citrus present in there. A little bit of orange, maybe some lemon peel. So I do get a little bit of some sweet oak on the nose on this one. You know, being 3 to 4 years, you wouldn't typically get a strong oak note, but I definitely pick up the oak on there a little bit further into the glass. Again, really nice nose. Let's go ahead to the palate, guys. Cheers. Yeah, so there's that higher proof. 116 proof. Definitely drinks like it. Still, you know, a really nice oiliness to it. So there's a toasted almond note on the finish on this one as well. Very similar in the finish to the 80 proof with that toasted almond note there in the back. Front, there's some sweetness. I'm just going to go back in for another sip here and see what we get. I still feel like I'm picking up a little bit of like honey, some sweetness. But now in the middle of the palate, I'm getting that citrus. There's some citrus there. It's really making my mouth water. It's like a blood orange. I really don't get like a blood orange on the palate very often. It's really good. Really, really good. So with this being, you know, still fairly young for barrel proof, I'm not picking up any of the grains on this one. This one, there's still definitely a mix of some honey in there. There's some blood orange on the middle of the palate. On the finish, I still get some of that like toasted almond note. Not really a long finish, but still it makes me want to go back for more just often. It's really savory, I would say. Let's go into the last sip, guys. Cheers. So there's definitely still some of that honey on there. Middle of the palate with that blood orange, I'm picking up like a nice rich like vanilla bean on that last sip. Again, very savory on this one. The flavors on here are very bold flavors. Robust, I guess you would say. And they just sit there on the palate. Beautiful proof point on this one. The feeling, and with the rye percentage being fairly low, I know that's the proof burn, but I think it's a beautiful balance. This mash bill that they've used here is a beautiful balance. I'm getting a little bit of everything. I'm not really getting any of that bread from like that wheat. Again, the rye is still a very low percentage, so I don't think any of that burn is coming from there. It's definitely from the proof. Beautiful proof point. Again, savory, very robust flavors on this one. Again, both of these are fantastic. And you know, the 80 proofers, you know, still had a really nice mouth feel to it. Still very oily for an 80 proofer. You know, still a little bit on the young side as far as taste, but not in a bad way. That's something that's gonna, it what you get from the youngness on here is you still get a lot of flavor from it. It's not just the grain, which is a huge win here for the 80 proofer. On the barrel proof, this one is very savory. It's robust. The mash bill on this one is just absolutely beautiful. There's tons of different flavors on here. You're getting some nuttiness with that almond. You're getting some citrus with that blood orange. You're getting a nice rich honey and a vanilla bean on here. Fantastic pours from Penelope Bourbon. So I thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to send a big thank you to the folks over at Penelope for supplying me with these two beautiful samples to review on the channel. You guys are doing absolutely fantastic things over there. So on that note, if you guys are looking for more reviews like this, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You can also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Until next time, guys, stay dusty.